I think we need to freshen those up. We need more lawyer clips, I think, for our next guest, legal analyst for Team 1260, Team 1200. He's all over the place now. We have made this next guy, we've turned him into a star.
Superstar.
You know, we really have. Eric Macramella, you're welcome.
Hello, Will. How are you?
You're welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
When we first got you on here, you were, let's just call a spade a spade. You were a nobody.
I was, well, I'm still a nobody.
Yeah.
I had started here in Ottawa on the Team 1200.
Right.
And then I think Nielsen was caught shoplifting.
Yes.
And he called me for help, and then I came onto your station. And then after that, the skies opened up.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it was dine and dash for Nielsen.
It's just weird because he kept shoplifting kiwis. He shoplifts kiwis.
Yeah. Well, and his problem is that, like, there's a guy that should never be running from anything, right? You know he's going to get caught.
Have you not seen
Exactly.
him?
That's the problem.
He's obese.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to kiwi, what do you guys do? Do you eat the furry outside?
I try not to eat any of it. Don't you find it gives you a weird feeling when you eat kiwi?
Well, you guys give me a weird feeling, but no, I enjoy kiwi.
Do you?
It's the right combination of sour and sweet, like you guys.
Wow. Eric, CBA negotiations start up in earnest for the NHL. When the NFL had theirs, we knew what they were fighting about. We really knew what the NBA was even fighting about. Do we have a clue what the NHL and NHLPA are fighting about?
Yeah, they're going to be fighting about the same stuff. The bottom line is the bottom line. They're going to be fighting over the player share revenue, which is now 57%. The NHL is going to want to get that down closer in line with the other three leagues. The NFL is about 48.5. NBA is a 50 plus or minus 1, depending on the health of the league, and MLB, which has no cap, works out to about 47%. You'd probably look at something around 52.5% ultimately, I am guessing. You have the salary floor, which is a big issue. Especially non-traditional teams have difficulty, teams in non-traditional markets have difficulty competing and turning a profit, having to spend X amount of dollars just to get to the salary floor. And I really think there is another important issue here, and that is the issue of free agency. Under the old CBA, you became an unrestricted free agent at the age of 31. Now it's the age of 27. There is a 7-27 rule. You become a UFA if you play 7 years or 27 years old. Let's just say it generally works out to 27. The problem with that age is that you now have teams offering disproportionately long contracts to players and buying up some of those UFA years. So that's why we have these long-term deals that are being given to really young players. Look at Carey Price, pretty young player. The Canadians signed him to an extensive deal, buying up, I believe, 4 UFA years. You didn't see that under the old agreement. That's one of the problems. So I think the NHL is going to look to tweak that as well.
How do you negotiate against an NHLPA and say, we can't stand these contracts when you have 24 contracts that are over 10 years in length? I mean, there's no doubt that owners have been offering these long-term deals. Right. And in a lot of these deals, and it's on my blog at OffsideSportsLaw.com, I analyzed 58 long-term deals of 6 years or more during the Kovalchuk case, and a lot of these deals circumvent the cap. That is, they're designed to artificially reduce the cap hit by adding throwaway years to the back end when you don't expect the player to be playing. But it's difficult because on the one hand, you're offering these deals, on the other hand, saying we don't like these deals. But I think the NHL's job is to put in place a structure to try and establish a framework for competitive balance and guide its owners and teams. So it's almost like the NHL is a chaperone for its own teams and does the best it can to control them.
Eric, Jeff Grishel here. You're right. There almost seems like they're going to be positioning themselves to save them from themselves. I mean, we take a look at a team like Edmonton with all these great young players. You can see the real attraction to signing these long-term deals, and it doesn't necessarily make sense for the betterment of the league. Do you think?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, if you look just at the Ryan Suter deal, I mean, let's break down the player. Averages 5 goals a season, about 30 points a season. Yeah, I know he's a shutdown guy. Maybe Rick Green somewhere is kind of shaking his head and wishing I stayed in the league longer. It's a very long deal for a good player, a shutdown defenseman type, but that was paired with a pretty good defenseman in Nashville. We know that of those two deals, in about 5 to 6 years, one of those deals won't be looking very good. How can you,
when it comes to athletes, dedicate 10 plus years to that athlete under a contract. It is nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. Athletes break down. The asset is the body and the mind. They don't always last. We see that all the time. Remember, guys, the old days, you sign a Major League Baseball player to 4 years, like, whoa, 4 years. Mm-hmm. That's beyond the 3 years. That's nuts. That's crazy. But now it's 13 years.
Yeah.
Or in the case of Kovalchuk, it's 17 years. I understand tying down an asset, but the asset itself is precarious in nature. You have to be careful.
We were talking a little bit earlier. To me, it seems like I understand why ownership would want to do it, because it gives them a guaranteed number long term that they can plan around. I understand why an agent would love it, because it's like signing a retainer with a law firm where, yeah, maybe you're not making as much as you can, but it's guaranteed dollars and you're running a business and you know that you can now financially plan that business 5-10 years out, that sort of a thing. But is it the player that's being taken advantage of? Because it seems, even yesterday, the actual cap hits of what these guys will make in their career is probably far less of what they could make in their career if they had just gone with 4-year contracts for the rest of their career.
Yeah, and I think as a player, what it does is it taps into human nature.
Yeah.
And that is, if you have a family seeking long-term stability in place of perhaps a short-term higher windfall when it comes to what you're being paid. And I think it's a fair question. I think that comes down just to how people react generally under those circumstances. It is tough ultimately to say that Parise and Suter have been taken advantage of, because, now they can buy my house and kick me out of it without even having met me. So it's tough to kind of, feel bad for these guys.
It is tough, but it's one of those ones where basically what you're saying to a guy is although obviously the way that they're structured is a little bit different, but that you will make less money every year of this contract, in that you or I, Eric, we can at least somewhat guarantee that rate of inflation alone will mean 5 years from now we'll probably be making more money than we're making right now. And you can't say that with a long-term deal, can you?
No, you can't say that in a long-term deal, but I think the guys working on the deals try and take all of that into account. Right. But on the flip side, look at Parise and Suter. The last 3 years, $2 million,
yeah.
$1 million, yeah. And $1 million. The ages of they'll be 38, 39, and 40.
Yep.
So those 3 years, I think, were added in to artificially lower the cap hit, and that's why I think these contracts are a circumvention. Check out my blog at OffsideSportsLaw.com, and you'll see why I think these two contracts are a circumvention. But I think by then, those players are not expected to be playing in the league. It's not empirically reasonable to assume that players other than Mark Recchi and Chris Shellis will be playing, into their 40s. But I think before that, they're making so much money. Agents take about 4 or 5% of that. As a side note, agents generally make more money off endorsement deals, taking about 20 to 25% from the players. But I think they're doing well. It's something that a player has to give up if they want to sign a long-term deal.
Will Fraser along with Jeff Kersheld, Dustin Nielsen away on vacation. I'm glad you brought up your blog there, Eric Mackermala, because you can find the link to it on the team1260.com, our website as well. Reading it yesterday, really interesting transcript from your interview that you had with Jerry Sandusky's lawyer. And I know it makes everybody uneasy to ever bring up the Sandusky trial, because of the subject that it matters around. But there is one area that I'd like your reaction from. The great question that you asked him was, why talk to Bob Costas and how bad of a tactical error was that for you? And he came back at you and said, well, tactically it was brilliant. The performance was just bad. But yet on the flip side, he doesn't testify in his own defense. Tactically, that must have been a mistake as well, just in a law perspective, in that you're basically telling the jury that he's confident enough to talk to a television broadcaster, but not confident enough to answer questions from a prosecutor.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and first, thank you for the kind words. So this is off my show Offside, which is a 1-hour show on the business and law of sports that airs here in Ottawa, and perhaps one day we'll be airing in Edmonton. And I did interview Carl Rominger, Jerry Sandusky's defense lawyer, and I did want to give him a chance to his mind and give an opportunity
to present his side of the case. It's not our job to judge, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably some of the more fascinating comments. But I think what happened there ultimately is you saw how poorly Jerry Sandusky performed in that interview, which is a cross-examination. He was horrendous. I remember I wrote a blog at the time calling it a tactical error, and I might have put that in italics. It was horrendous. So all along, Jerry Sandusky was going to testify in the trial. His lawyers, Amendola and Rominger, said that in the opening.
Right.
But he ended up not testifying. And the reason he didn't testify is, I think it's twofold. Number one, they recognize, man, he is not good. He's going to destroy himself. There is a disconnect between reality and Jerry Sandusky. I bet you if you asked him, he might admit to doing these things, but didn't think they were wrong. That's the first thing. Second thing is, when a defendant testifies in a case like this, Will, it is a Hail Mary pass.
Right.
It's you are out of options. Clemens didn't testify. Bonds didn't testify. There was no reason. Here, they were thinking about it because they knew it was a really tough case. It was an uphill battle. That aside, no, we didn't see him testify, but I think it probably was best that he didn't testify. But I did think Rominger's response to the Costas question was interesting because he thought it was tactically brilliant.
Yes.
When really it wasn't. There were so many miscues.
Oh, man.
In this trial. I mean, I think to one, just thinking back now, and I've got it on the blog, I just put some of the verbiage they were saying. At one point, he asked Amendola, Sandusky's lawyer, asked people to check into reality and call 1-800-REALITY or something like that. That ended up being a hotline for like a homosexual erotic type telephone.
Right.
And it was odd. But they kept making all these miscues. Rominger himself took the position before trial that Sandusky was showering with children to teach them hygiene. Difficult. But still, the interview itself is extremely compelling.
Yeah, I mean, listen, maybe I'm not the average juror, but I put myself in a juror's seat, and I would somewhat feel like it's guilt by omission at that point. If you're telling me that you'll talk to anyone and everyone about it, but when time comes for you to actually stand up there and defend yourself, you won't do it in front of me, it tells me that you're guilty.
That's a great point, and perhaps I should have asked that. That's definitely a nice way to put it. I think at that point, though, I think all the nails were in the coffin. You had 8 victims that had testified with massively weighted, compelling testimony. You had McCreary's testimony, which was believable. You had so much testimony. There was little to be gained with having Sandusky testify. I think that's ultimately why they pulled him back. They didn't think that they really had a chance. But it was also interesting that Carl Rominger said that Sandusky maybe wasn't surprised by the verdict, but he does adamantly, and those were his words, adamantly believe in his innocence. And I asked him if he would have accepted a plea deal, and his response is he didn't believe that Sandusky would have accepted a plea deal that would have been based upon probation. That means not going to prison. That, to me, is a fascinating statement.
Well, it sounds like the guy is exactly where he needs to be. So at least it ends. It's the right ending.
He will die in jail.
If not a happy ending. Yeah, absolutely. Eric, sorry to get so serious there on the end. We'll try and keep it light next time.
No, please. And I owe everything to you guys.
All right, my man.
Credit where credit is due.
That's what I tell everyone, Eric. That's what I tell everyone. That Eric Macramella, he owes me everything. So enjoy the heat out east, my friend.
Okay, guys, take care.
All righty. Eric Macramella, our sports legal analyst here on the Team 1260. And if you haven't had a chance, it's a great transcript from his interview with the lawyer for Sandusky. And when I read it right there where the lawyer goes, no, I thought it was tactically brilliant to have him talk to Bob Costas. Anyone who saw that interview knows that, what are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing, man? But fortunately enough, it wasn't tactically brilliant, and it ended up getting the right guy in behind bars. There is no way to